Hello and welcome to the Ultra Wizard Ramble. This is episode 1, season 1, with my good friend Yatika Starfields. Yatika is a really special person to me. We're about to have one of our longest form conversations to date outside of time we spent in person together. I don't know how to describe him other than an artist, an activist, a painter specifically, a bicycle messenger, an ultra runner, a lover of the outdoors, someone that cares about the land he's on and the people around him and how he impacts the world. So, without further ado, hope you enjoy my conversation with Yatika Starfields. All right. I couldn't be more stoked today to be chatting with a good friend of mine, Yatika Starfields. Hey, buddy, welcome to the show.
Yo, thank you for having me, Patrick. It's good to be on your new podcast, especially after us hanging out and getting to know one another through last year's training session in Western States and getting to know one another through music and art and movement. Happy to be a part of this component in your life, and yeah, I'm excited to talk more because every time we chat, we always figure something else out new. So super stoked to be on it.
Yeah, thanks, man. Thanks for coming on. And I think, like, much like you, every time me and you discuss a subject, whether it's music or art, um, or bicycles or running, we stumble upon either a new concept we haven't touched on before, a new band we haven't talked about before, or someone that we both know, and like we go down these interesting paths all the time in our conversations. I think that's one of the coolest parts about us becoming friends via this like coach athlete relationship that we've had over the last couple of years, man. So I'm grateful to have you on, and we're gonna unpackage you today, man. That's what the cast is all about, is like, it's about friendship, and it's about the connection that me and you have as friends, and what sort of knowledge we can pass on to other people. So that being said, man, I want more than anything for you to give us just a little bit of a background on you. You don't have to wax super poetic about your entire past, but I would love for people to hear about who you are in terms of your heritage, where you're from, and a little bit about your path leading up to this place now, where you're a professional artist and a ultra endurance athlete.
Yeah, again, thanks for having me on here, Patrick. Without being too wax poetic on my life history, and which is usually the go-to in podcasts, and having this conversation be more organic, I think I would like to start with just saying hello to your listeners. I'm happy to be here. My name is Yatika Starfields. I'm from Oklahoma, Tulsa, Oklahoma, Muskogee Nation Reservation. I'm Osage, Muskogee, and Cherokee. Those are indigenous tribes here in Oklahoma. There's a deep history within that, which is a whole nother podcast, and how we got here and the histories of that. But it's home base for me, it's home base for the tribe. Our reservations are here, our communities are here, and I'm a part of that community. It's taken me most of my life to find the rhythm and find my place in the community where I've established myself as an artist, an athlete, an advocate, and a role model, I would say, for the Native community here.
Because that you are. I mean, you're a big time role model for your community. You're an active person that has finished extremely hard challenges in life, not only with art, but with your ultra endurance. So what has that been like to to be a leader of your community?
It's ongoing. Every day is a new direction, a new moment in it. It's been a journey for me to be here. At the same time, I look back to the people who've gotten me to this point as guides to help me and inspire me every day to be the person I want to be and to help others. I think it's harder for a lot of people to see the indigenous community and how we partake and pertain to the American history, even in the contemporary economics and society of today, how things are a bit different, whether that's our daily lives or how we make art or how we run or how we just go about our daily lives. So I would say it's been a lot of mix and matches, a lot of intersections of people who have got me to be here and to be who I am today. So, and that's also part of my not so wax poetic introduction of who I am. I think, so first and foremost, I'm an indigenous person, then I'm an artist, and then I'm I would say, newly found endurance athlete in the last 7 years. So,
Okay, so lots to unpackage here, and a lot of what you. I think the way that you carry yourself reminds me a lot of the way that Utah Phillips talks about how the past didn't go anywhere. Like the past is this winding deep river, and how everything that we've experienced in life is a part of who we are. I think you and me feel this way deeply about like our families and our ancestry. My grandfather like really impacted and affected me in this way, where he got me thinking about like the way that you carry yourself in life and how important it is to maintain those roots of who you are. Um, I think maybe that's part of why me and you have kind of connected from the get go as friends. Is you have these elements of him in you, or just the way that you approach life in general. It reminds me of my grandfather and the way that I try to approach life in that way, of the importance of friendship and the people around you, and always thinking about how your decisions and actions are affecting the environment and the people around you, right? Like this is who you are. When I think of you, I think of someone that's very mindful of every single word they say, and someone that's like just really concerned in general about how they impact the environment around them. What I don't want to speak for you, but like where did that come from? I mean, do you feel that way about yourself? I don't know if you analyze it that deeply, but that's how I think of you.
I don't analyze it that hard about myself, I don't think, but it's gradual, kind of like I said before, like every day is a new outlook on life and it's a new way to approach and analyze and think about yourself and what you're doing. It's interesting because I also have like a role model and I really looked up to my grandfather as well. And there's a lot of things that he told me that I grew up with that I cherished and that I took to heart and that I still think about even when I'm on, because he was an outdoorsman. He was led um, like camping trips and whitewater rafting and hunting in the Rocky Mountains
Oh,
back
very
in the
cool.
day. And I remember he was even on a Schlicht commercial as like one of the cowboys on the horses or something.
Like the
But he
beer,
would
the
always,
beer,
what's that?
Schlitz, like the beer.
Yeah, the beer. It was
Oh
like an
man,
old
that
Schlicht commercial, like I think where there's like cowboys on just the silhouettes of them maybe, and then they're like riding into a mountain or something. So
whoa, that's a wild little story. That's a funny wrinkle, right?
it is, yeah, it is. But I think the interesting thing is that he was such a mountain person and kind of full circle in who we are in relation that there's a lot that I feel like I'm similar to him and as well as enjoying the time in the mountains, and being out in the nature and being out at high altitude places and so forth.
So
Um,
that's do you think that's a direct derivative from him then, being a high alpine kind of lover of the outdoors and nature? Is that do you find that other places in your family and in your lineage, or is it specifically like your grandfather?
Specifically, my grandfather for sure. From the stories that he told
Mm.
me and seeing pictures of him, and kind of thinking about it now in this podcast in this moment, I think that could be the catalyst for like the inspiration to be in the mountains. I do remember seeing photos of him with his buddies, like with guns, hunting with an elk, and you can definitely see the aspen trees and the cedars and the mountains. And I know for a fact that as a kid looking at that landscape really appealed to me because it wasn't something that was in Oklahoma, but it looked beautiful.
Sure. Sure. Okay, so you've got this big influencer in your life that maybe you're just starting to think about it, as to why you like endurance athletics, why you like being high up in the mountains. We're getting a little ahead of who you are, and there's I know a lot about you that our listeners don't, right? Like, you're from Oklahoma, you live in Tulsa, your residency isn't far from a theater that Bob Wills and the Texas Playboys played at on a very regular basis. Me and my partner Adrian have had a chance to visit with you in your home city and see your residency. But I want you to take us back a little bit, right? Like, it doesn't have to be all the way to your childhood, but what shaped you and what led you down the path of becoming an artist? Because when you talk about yourself, you talk about your heritage first, and then you talk about becoming an artist and how it is such a central role and a part of who you are. Not only you, but your mom too, right? You're both artists in the same residency. So tell me about, like, what was your path to making art? Um, your art speaks a lot about your culture, and what led you there?
What led me there would definitely be growing up in an artistic household, in a household of creativity. Both of my parents are artists. My mom's also in the Tulsa Artist Fellowship residency program that I'm currently in, and she's been in it along with me for the past 5 years. So she is a well-renowned artist that has many accolades and has been really celebrating getting a lot of awards in the last few years, and I'm really happy for her. So I just want to give a shout out to her for sure. Then my dad, he's an amazing photographer, storyteller, cultural preserver, and activist and advocate. So, I grew up around both of these aspirations and inspirations and way of being. And I was around artists, I was around exhibitions, I was traveling with him to go to shows. So it was just something that I was a part of and I would see daily, specifically Native artists, Indigenous artists, and
Yeah.
events. So for me to be drawing in grade school and middle school and high school and then painting, it was just something that was comfortable, but it was something that I enjoyed. And it was something that I didn't, fear or regret. And I was also at the same time I was playing baseball in high school, junior varsity and varsity, and I was skateboarding. I was in the chess club. I was in like two bands, and it was insane. I was just doing so much,
Yeah, man. That's a
and
lot. I mean, that's a lot to
yeah,
take on as someone in their teens.
it's a lot to take on. But at the same time, I was trying to just like around as much as possible and learn as much as possible, and so definitely the household of artists and being around exhibitions and art my whole life kind of I think led me to where I am today. And I remember telling my mom one time I want to be an artist. That's what I want to do when I grow up. She really kind of set me down and was like, if you really want to do that, then these are the things that need to happen. It's basically it's no joke. So, but
Yeah, like, this isn't going to be necessarily the easy path, right? Meaning something that keeps you, fiscally stable just off of showing up. Like, you have to make something that stands out. You have to make something that's interesting to many different types of people, right? And you also have to make something meaningful as an artist, right? To you, or if you're not making something you're passionate about, right? And you've probably been there with a commission in the past or something of that nature. It's kind of like, it kind of guts the part of art that you love, right? Like, if you play in a cover band and you don't like any of the songs, but you play music for money, you're not going to be in it very long, right? So, like, how did you find your? I mean, number one, it's awesome. Like, your mom and dad were super encouraging in this way, but they were also real with you, right? Like, so many of us are sort of dreamers, and, like, I think maybe we have some guidance that that just says you can do anything you want in life and it's going to be comfortable and easy and you're going to make it happen. But it's kind of cool that your mom was like, this is going to be hard and this is why. And you have to decide that you want to do it then.
Yeah, I'm still a dreamer for sure. And it's definitely challenging. I think she gave me a heads up on a lot of things, but still I'm learning with it all. I'd say the big takeaway in that is that I have a community that I grew up with who are involved in the arts to fall back on and to ask questions if I need to. But within the Native and Indigenous art community, it's pretty small, even on the academic side. So we all know what people are doing, researching studies, and what museums and institutions and galleries are doing. So it's a big circle that is pretty close knit, which makes it pretty cool too, because we can share resources and information. So,
I mean, it gives you depth and it makes it quite special that you feel like you really get to know the people in your community that are also artists, right? Um, it's pretty awesome that your mom is one of those people and your dad too. Do you feel like you've got to know them more than just your parents because of that? Do you have a much deeper connection than just the aspect of family?
say the art is the family. That's what has made the family be the family in this certain way. How every family is different in their own background. I would say that art has been the structure of it all for us and how we communicate and how we move through life, really, culturally. You know, this is the way how we explain who we are, our family, our culture to the outside world. So I think that's how our family is, and that's how I've gotten to know one another. Even my brother, who I remember showing you one of his music videos, he's a bluegrass player and fiddler.
Oh
And
man,
so he also
yeah,
has a big part of himself that's art related in a totally different way that I don't have that embodiment of music and knowledge that has come effortless seemingly through him. But again, I know part of that is the fostering that our family has, you know, brought up just the freedom of expression through creativity and art making, which is the family structure is art and being able to be comfortable in making that and sharing that.
we're gonna link Yatika's brother's band down in the
Definitely.
bio of this podcast. Could you tell everyone what the band that he's currently playing with is called, his current projects, and like,
Oh man, I have no idea what his current projects are. Yeah, so many.
okay,
Um, yeah, we'll link his Instagram, and his name is Nokosee Fields, Nokoseefields. So he's always playing in various bands and touring, and but yeah, we'll link one of his videos. Beautiful stuff.
perfect. Did you Nokosee, right?
Yeah,
Did you and Nokosee have a really tight relationship growing up? Did you play in bands? You mentioned playing in a few bands.
yeah,
Did
I
you play
played
in
in
bands
bands
together?
growing up, but our age difference is there's a gap in kind of the age difference. So when I was gone to the East Coast to school after graduating high school, he was still pretty young. And so there's a
Mm,
big gap, I'd say, of years where I was on the East Coast over 10 years. And so I missed, I think, a lot of time with him. So it's been interesting, the dynamic when you leave your family and you try to reconnect, I think, later, you know, whether
I
that's your
agree.
parents or your sibling or whoever, you know. But sometimes you wonder, like, what would have been like if you would have been around for those years, you know, and what that relationship would have been like. So,
Man, it's such a heavy topic, right? Because we all have to. I think I'm sure your parents are encouraging this way too, but I was encouraged to chase my dreams, right? To just absolutely go after it. There were things I did after I graduated college that maybe my family didn't like, or they would have preferred me to go another direction. But I am who I am, and I'm really proud of who I am because of the decisions I made, bad and good. But what I missed was those years with my mom and dad, and I still continue to miss them, where I don't see them incredibly often, you know? That's hard. Because you almost begin to feel, at least from a spatial perspective, a little estranged. Um, when you went to New York, right? Like, did you feel at first very, what led you to the decision to go to New York? Was it your art?
It was my art. It was right after high school. I went to school in Boston for 3 years, and with the intention of going to New York City. Actually, there was an option to go to Savannah to go to school. What is it, SCAD or what's the school there?
Yeah, SCAD, where I
Yeah.
coached. Yeah.
So I think there was an option to go there or San Francisco or Boston, and I wanted to get closer to New York, so I chose Boston.
And was San Francisco the Academy of Art? Yeah.
Yeah, yeah,
Hmm.
it was. And I had been to San Francisco a few times at that point, so I already knew what it was about. And but my goal was get to New York City, so and
What
Boston was
what
going to do that.
what specifically drew you to New York City? In your mind, was it the cultural hub of like of art, of what you wanted to do, of what you wanted to make? Were you already specifically a painter at that point?
Yeah, I was definitely a painter at that time, and I'd say for the 5 years prior to that major decision, I was reading any book I could get my hands on, studying art history, um, old and contemporary, and New York always came up. You know that this is the place for the artists. This is where you
Yeah.
go. This is where the wild times happen. This is where the culture is. This is the urban cultural hub, and I wanted to be there. I wanted to try my hand at it, see what could happen there. So that was that was the goal. So,
Okay, so this is when life, I mean, life up to this point is incredibly interesting for you, right? You already played in bands. I assume some of them punk rock. I mean, just based on what I know about you. Um, you're a painter. You moved to New York City, and I know some things about you from your days there, particularly becoming a bike messenger, um, and loving New York City culture. What was the change like for you? You know, moving from Oklahoma to New York, and what kept you there? You were there for quite a while, so what led you to just deciding, hey, this is home now, at least temporarily? Like, even if it's not home, because where you're from is home. Like, what led you to stay in New York?
what led me to stay in New York would probably be chasing the dream, chasing an idea of success, some sort of success with art. Because it's easy to get discouraged in that city. It's easy to feel lonely and feel far away. It's such a pseudo city.
Right.
It never felt like home to me, and I knew that, but I'd always come back in the summer for our ceremonies. So I'd always kind of feel
Sure.
rejuvenated and feel refreshed to go back into the wildness and do what I need to do for a whole year, then go back into ceremony and then get my get all my home out of me and in me and then go back. So but what kept me staying was just the adventure of it, really. I think, it was where I still wanted to be. Yeah, I wasn't done with it, and I had to get to the bottom of something with it. So
So this is a huge change for you, and it doesn't feel like home, and it maybe never felt like home, maybe more than it did at first. But when you were there at first, how hard was it? How hard was it to make the to make it, and make it? What the hell does that even mean, man? I don't know. Like, I don't know what make it means. It's just a matter of, like, you wake up, you know what you do, you know who you are, and you just keep acting upon it. But you did have a goal, right? And I'm not talking fiscal bullshit. I'm talking like, when did you kind of realize, like, man, I'm on this path and it's starting to click? Like, because you wouldn't have stayed if it wasn't clicking.
New York City was such a major time in my life, and I just got back from New York too, like a few days ago, and it's such a beautiful place to revisit. And there's a lot of things that I did prior to my time there that I don't do now, such as drinking or light drugs, not crazy hard drugs or anything, but and just being in your 20s and early 30s and participating in this culture, whether that's the art scene, the graffiti scene, or the bike messenger scene, or the music scene. It's highly social space and place. Um, those are all relevant things that were a part of my life in New York City, which made it exciting. You never knew who you're going to meet, what possible collaborations could happen. Um, and two, the art that I was making and what kind of inspiration I was getting in making it, or the connections I was making for doing group shows. It was always group shows I was always a part of.
Okay, so
So
these were more co-ops, collectives of people that had maybe the same mindset or the same goals in mind. You kind of chained together to draw interest for making a name for yourself, kind of.
yeah, I would say so. Everyone had their own different mission there and their own different point of view of how they wanted to partake in New York City. Um, but for real though, for me at that point, I don't. I think it was just kind of an. I was still kind of aimlessly going about my day and weeks in New York City as a bike courier, as a painter, and it was super tough. I mean, the first year in New York City as a bike messenger, and that's how I'm making my means. Really, is you're in it all most all day, all weather, and even through the winter. And I've seen some really beautiful things. I've seen some really dark things there,
Yeah, sure.
tragic things.
That's the nature of the
So
transportation industry. No matter what you're
yeah,
delivering, people or or packages, man. You know.
for real. Yeah. I mean, I should really like start writing all this stuff down more and kind of maybe make a little book or something about it because really interesting stories and and part of my life that in talking about it now with you, it's bringing some of it up, and I'm kind of looking back at it. And even when I go back to New York, like just recently, I'm riding around. I borrow a friend's bike, or I'm renting a city bike, and I'm literally riding around down Broadway or Fifth Avenue like I'm a messenger. Like no holds
Yeah.
bars, holding onto cars, zigging
you,
through traffic.
man, you can't take the messenger out of the artist, man.
No,
You know, you
no,
you are the messenger. You're the artist. You're
I
all of
am
it,
the
man.
messenger. Once it's a party, it never. You're always a part of it.
I think this way about pedicabbing, you know, man. Like we have this thing in common where you delivered things and I delivered people. You were on two wheels, I was on a trike, but nonetheless, you see a lot of dark, right?
Mhm.
Like you see a lot of your friends go down interesting paths, some good, some bad. Um, you see some of the best parts of humanity and some of the worst. You know, your general everyday interactions with people when you're in that transportation industry. Um, but I'm forever a pedicabber. Like I know you feel this way about being a messenger, and I feel this way about cabs. I see cabs sometimes, and I'm like, oh man, I was like meant to be a pedicabber. Why am I not on a pedicab? It's funny, but like I could totally see myself just on it again because I love that job. Like that was just the most incredible, cool job, cool people, great, crazy memories, man. You know, like I just reflect on that a lot. And I'm sure like the messenger culture must be like very close knit, like pedicabbing culture is too.
I'm sure it is. Yeah, it's a very tight knit community. Even when I was getting my runs in the city, I would go by messengers, and they're super young. I'm like, they must be 20, and that's what I was doing when I was 20 as well. So it's like, and now I do portraits of people, and I'll post them, or to social medias or something, and just kind of capturing the culture and time and place, and I'll ask them, hey, can I get a portrait of you? And usually they're pretty cool about it, and I tell them, I used to ride around there and whatnot. So
That's awesome.
even
So,
whether if it's the West Coast, San Francisco, or New York City, or Mexico City, or wherever, every messenger community is tied together globally too, and they all hang out in different cities and travel to different cities and work in different companies. So,
yeah, you probably move with the birds a little bit too, right? I mean, did you ever go to other countries and work as a messenger when New York was really cold in the winter, or were you then like kind of holed up concentrating on your art?
oh yeah, I was holed up just working on my art. I was still messenger and just being freezing and miserable, but coming
Yeah.
back to the studio that night, I look forward to it.
Yeah, I bet because that's as a pedicabber, it was like people just didn't pay you. They didn't want to like ride on your pedicab in the winter, but like packages, man, they need to be delivered in New York City.
Mm-hmm.
So like your work never stopped. You didn't have like a slow season. Was there a slow season? Not really, right?
No, everything was pretty current. Everything moved pretty quick, and was there was always work for sure. And if you wanted work, you were going to get work for sure because your dispatchers knew that you were hungry for it. An interesting thing about it, though, is the shift in the economy and even like the digital terrain that we're in today. Is packages are less relevant as they were in
Mm,
the late 80s and 90s and early 2000s. I think the golden era of bike messengering was in the late 80s in New York
mm,
City, and then in the 90s had a resurgence, and early 2000s was okay, but it started dwindling down. And so now everything is about bigger cargo bikes, trying to replace the actual trucks in New York City and reduce carbon emissions and so forth.
sure.
And now everything is sent via, emails or not through courier hand to hand. So, or it's a bit different now, the landscape of it.
Yeah. So now is it more like I need this part and it's across town and I have to keep working on this and I need the part here as quickly as possible. Is there a particular? Well, I mean, we're really like delving down the path of bicycle messengering, but I'm incredibly interested in it. Like it's just always been as someone that rides single speeds, that was a
Mm.
pedicabber. Like I'm just super interested in bike messengers, man, and I don't really care if people listening aren't because I want to
Well,
keep talking about
I
it.
think you definitely should have been one. I wish I wish had you in New York City working along with me. I bet you would have enjoyed it definitely.
All right, we can move on from delivering people and things on bikes and trikes. So you're in New York. Do you feel like there was a moment with your art that was like your aha when you were there? Did it happen there, or did it happen when you left? At least with like where was the like real professional turn for you as an artist where all of a sudden you're in a lot of galleries and like you've been in galleries all around the world now. Where was the turn for you? Like it was hard and then you eventually weren't a messenger anymore. Like what led to that?
Well, I don't know if the aha moment has even happened yet.
That's
And
good. That's
it's
good,
kind of
man.
interesting. It's kind of interesting, like you said, like what is success? Like
Of course.
I'm there right now. Like what even is that idea? We all have different ideas of it, and I think it's the daily approach to, oh, today I had success in my painting process, or I had success in how I went through the day. So I think I've definitely shifted my idea of what that is from when I was in my 20s to now, and to how I make art and what my process is. And I'm thankful for that too, because it's helped me develop myself spiritually, consciously, um, in health, in all aspects, to be the better artist that I can be, a better person. I think in New York City, I was just being young, being in the culture, trying to survive, making art, figuring things out, but gaining knowledge at the same time, life skills, life knowledge, street knowledge as well.
Yeah,
And I
100%.
survived it. Bottom line is, I survived it because it's true. I knew a lot of uh, folks and friends and fellow messengers that didn't make it. And they have those white ghost bikes that they place around the cities of cyclists who've been killed.
Oh,
And
right.
there was plenty of them around New York City. It's a very dangerous place to ride a bike.
Well,
So I'm happy.
especially, fixed gear, like delivering packages aggressively to like make your money. 'Cause there's a timetable, right?
There's definitely a timetable. And for me, I did that out, and I think it was kind of coupled with a lot of other things that were happening in my personal life, and just being over waking up hungover or not having any money to survive, and yeah, I just needed a change. And at that point, it had been over 10 years in New York, and yeah, I just needed a big change and a reset and everything. And a big thing too with that is that I had a meniscus um, accident, so I had to get knee surgery. So that kind of put me out of the game for a bit and kind of had to make me
Hmm.
reshift and reevaluate what I was doing.
Yeah, that has to totally shift your focus when you realize, oh man, yeah, there goes one of my main sources of income, right? Because my knee's
Mm-hmm.
not operational in the way it needs to be. So you're over it. You want to clean up the thing, you want to clean up, what am I putting in my body? How am I treating my body? How am I spending my time? Did you move back to Tulsa immediately? Like when you had this feeling, did it build and eventually you moved back?
Yeah, I moved back to kind of just get better, kind of like slow things down. I needed to heal my leg. I needed to heal myself, and that took about a year to kind of just like cleanse, reset, forgive. And this was a lot of interchange, I would say, that happened in that transition from New York City to where I am now, to the next place in my life, I would say, the next year.
Interchange here, like
Interchange for sure.
here,
Interchange,
here.
all interchange, sure. And how I interacted with the day, interacted with the months and my art, my relationships.
Okay, so what? Give us a timetable. When did you? What year did you move back to Tulsa? Like, what years were you in New York, and when? How long ago did you move back to Tulsa?
So I was in New York City from 2004 to 2013, and then came back home for a year and was going to California out and back towards the end of that for about a year with thoughts that I was going to move to LA. And then I moved up to Pacific Northwest in a relationship that didn't work out, came back, and then got into the fellowship residency program. So
Where
that
did you
was like
go in the
16.
PNW? Did you go like Portland or Port Townsend or Seattle? Or where were you?
It was Seattle.
Okay.
Yeah. And Seattle is actually where I started, I'd say started running. Yeah.
Man, now it's like really coming together. Now we're hearing about, dude, how did you become you?
Mhm.
I don't know a lot about this. This is also interesting for me, just as your friend, man. We're buds, and so you find running up there. Are you running in? Let me think. Like, are you running in the city? Are you going like out in the mountains in Tacoma? Like, where are you spending your time, and how did you even did you run in high school too? Like, how did you find that you loved it so much?
I didn't run in high school. I skateboarded and baseball, and that was the only thing related to athletics and running that I did. In Seattle, it would be the Green Lake Running Club that I became a part of and reached out to and started joining their Tuesday night or Thursday night track sessions that they had at Green Lake. And that was the first time I started running with the group. Prior to that, it was kind of just running 1 to 2 miles, doing some local 5Ks, and in Alki Beach and downtown Seattle or wherever they were. I would just jump in and sign up and aim for a time and hit it, and then try to do a better time the next 5K. And I still have my journal. It was one of those Jack and Jill um, running store like notation book that you write everything down your
Oh
training sessions.
yeah, yeah, for sure.
So
Yeah,
it's
what you
like
ate, how you
it's
felt.
legit.
So this is like 2015, 16?
Yeah, 2016, 15. Yeah, yeah,
Okay, so you moved back to Tulsa in 2016 and run it. You caught the bug, man. You've got the running bug. Did when you moved back, did you immediately get in the fellowship? You must have been pretty close to that time, right? Are you year 7
yeah.
right now?
Actually, there's a big point there that Standing Rock happened. The big
Oh, right.
protest we had up there, and
Let's touch
with
there a little bit.
the Dakota Access Pipeline.
Yeah, so like how long how long were you did you go and how long were you there? Like cuz you're an activist, man. I mean, like when I think of you, I think of you as yeah, artist, endurance athlete, activist, and this is a very important moment. Um
Yeah, it was a big moment for me, and I think for the whole nation of Indigenous members, and we all came together to support one another, but to support Indigenous rights and Indigenous sovereignty. And it was something that was really beautiful and really powerful that I never thought I would see anything like or be a part of at that capacity once I was there. And I was there just twice, I think each point over 2 weeks, which seems like an eternity when you're there at the camp, considering there's really
yeah, I
like
bet.
no cell service or no running water or facilities, whatnot. So everything was done old school way, you know,
Yeah.
fires, making food, kitchens, and whatnot. But it was a beautiful time of celebration of our spirits and who we were as Indigenous people, but also as determined people to show the world who we are and what's important to us in the land, and help inspire a movement to keep the earth clean and fresh and from pollutants, and really stand up. So, I mean, there's so much to say on what happened at Standing Rock, but that's a big point of reference in my life because it kind of is another, I think, that shift from New York to Tulsa and then Standing Rock is like the flip of me, and then the fellowship happened right after that, coming to Oklahoma and then making paintings based on my experience there and my connections I made there. So that was 2016 when that happened, and 17 I was in Tulsa to this point now in that program as an artist.
So Standing Rock's a huge moment for indigenous people in general. And for you it was something you would never trade, right? Like this is something you would have not been anywhere else, no matter how hard like 2 weeks at a time was. Um, it's inspired your art. Um, does it inspire your art like deeply and always? Do you always think about the things you learned at Standing Rock when you're painting? Is it just part of you now, like deep in your soul?
Yeah, I think everyone who was there can testify to that and say a similar thing. if you were to ask him that question, it's definitely in you, and memories of it come up. I know a few days ago I was talking to someone about it and an experience there. I was just hanging out with a performer and native artist and a musician, and the work that he's made from that as well. It was a big point of reference in time for us as artists and community members to find out who we were, what we're doing, and then think about it in a new way that we can help uplift and bring this message out to the general public in our communities of where we're from. And I brought it through in a series of paintings and a series of work that I wanted viewers to see in galleries, that power and that strength that came from that resonated from that. Because as I said, it was something that I never thought I would see before, like sitting on a hill a mile away and looking down at the camp, and it's just a huge encampment. You see teepees, you see kids lapping on horses. I mean, it was something that I might be seeing in like the 1800s, you know, a real
Oh
a real
man.
deal Indian camp. So it was beautiful.
Yeah, I mean, incredibly special. I can't relate, man. You know, like I can't. I can appreciate, right? Of course, I can appreciate. But what that must feel like for you is got to be really special.
Yeah, it was,
Were there
it
parts
was
of your
special in a lot
life?
of ways
Yeah.
that
Hmm.
my brother and sister were also there with me when we first went there, and we went up there together. So that was a really beautiful bonding experience that we all got to share and have.
Yeah,
And
totally.
once we got there, we set up camp and then sought out ways we could help. So it was really beautiful.
I mean, you must have thought some, or I mean, I guess my perception's like, why did this change? Why have we clear cut 95% of the forests? Why have we sold away the very land under our feet to people, to terrible people that do not have our best intentions in mind? You know, I guess like that's the way that that I can relate and the things I'm angry about. Because I'm angry about a lot of the things that you're angry about. I think that's why we get along so well, because we're angry about similar things, but we channel positivity. Like our interactions, they're not doomer, but we talk about real shit.
Hmm. Yeah, that's true words right there. And I think about it too. It's that it's easier to be angry. It's easier to be upset and lose yourself and be arrested and go to jail. And that's what, when I say they, that's what the system wants. They want the weak and minded, to put them away so they're out of context and not a threat to what's happening. But if we can rechannel that, be positive mentors through what we do for you and your coaching and running and your music and who you are, Patrick, and who I am as well. And I've had to come a long way to find that and channel these things and not be angry and so forth, but utilize my art and running to help me sustain that. That's part of the mission that I learned possibly at Standing Rock, or that helped me become a better person and see the reality of what's on the other side of the front lines is the military in the U.S. setting up front lines on reservation boundaries and lines in an act of war right in the middle of the United States, you know. And not many
Oof.
people know that or got to see that and see the reality of it, but that's what this nation is, it's that's the reality. It's hard not to be upset and angry, but I'm stronger for it, and that's, I think, why I enjoy ultra running is because it keeps me strong, keeps me healthy, and it's a long game thing, you know. It's and it goes well with my art as well, and it just goes well with the spirituality of being a human being. So
It does, and I think that's where we connect, right? This desire to think more about our community than we maybe think about ourselves, or both. You know, maybe both of us. I mean, I don't know what your perception um, of me is, but my perception of you is you care deeply about everyone around you in some fashion, and you may prefer interacting with some more than others, just like every human. But within the ultra running community, we can all connect on this thing that's really hard. It's just really hard to finish these things. And it doesn't always happen, no matter how trained you are. Like, dude, sometimes you just roll snake eyes and you're like, man, I prepared so well, but I made so many stupid decisions, or I got unlucky with weather or with an injury. Um, because of the things you've seen, like in your life in general, growing up, on a reservation. Yeah. Um,
mm,
and then experiencing Standing Rock, um, you're experiencing like really hard conditions working wise as a bicycle messenger in New York City. Do you think that's why you're so into these really long, grueling events? It's like we're now like you're back in Tulsa, you're back from Standing Rock. I mean, it's always a part of you, but like, how the heck do you channel that in ultra running? Like, when do you start getting interested and starting to think about doing an ultra? Like, how does that happen?
yeah. First, though, I want to say that I did grow up in Stillwater, Oklahoma, and then Tulsa. So these are places that, well, Tulsa isn't reservation boundary lines, but I wouldn't say it's like a deep cultural reservation, but very integrated and oriented with
Okay,
non-natives as well. So I didn't grow up in a deep reservation, um,
gotcha.
but going up to Standing Rock, yes, that was the reality up there. Just working and helping these people who are actually from this reservation up north. Um, when I was up there, I was also training for my first 50K. So I had to
Oh
continue
man,
doing my long runs. And I remember I would run to the front lines, which is about a mile north of the camp. And I would run up there and see what's going on, get pamphlets or whatever. And you could see the military across the fence. And then I would run back to camp, which is a mile downhill. And then I would run on the other side of camp around the river towards Cannonball, which is a native community out there along the Missouri River. And at that point, you could get on a hill and then look down at the camp. So then I would run into town, then run back, and that was about maybe 14 miles with some climbing in it. So I would always be running when I was at camp to train. But my first 50K came in October of that same year of 2016. So that was my first really ultra in October.
man, it's so wild that we got into ultras at virtually the same time. Like it's a similar time. I mean, it's within 12 months.
Mm-hmm. Well,
What was that
yeah, and that
first? What
was
was that
I.
experience like? Was it as rewarding as as people say, like finishing your first ultra was? Did you just catch the bug and it caught like wildfire for you? You wanted to go further and further, do more and more.
Yeah, pretty much. I think for me, it went from half marathon to 50K, and I really enjoyed it. Then the build up to it. It was also in Tahlequah, Oklahoma, a race called Pumpkin Holler 100. They have 100 miles, 60, 100K, and 50 miles, and 50K, and then 25K and whatnot. And now they have a gravel component to it as well. gravel bike, but
Ah, so cool.
it's a loop around a wildlife preserve in northeastern Oklahoma in Tahlequah, and I grew up in that area as well. I grew up on that river, the Illinois River, so it was a special place to me. So I was really looking forward to running and being out there, being around familiar landscapes and woods and smells and senses and seeing the river. And my dad was helping me, crewing me. So it was a really cool
Yeah.
experience. And I got a friend to help me out too. I think it was his first time to ever be around an event like that. So yeah, it was very interesting. I did it. I completed it in I think in 4 hours and 30 minutes. Placed like fourth place in it,
Damn,
and
man, that's such a good
I
first 50K.
it was a good first 50K, and I really didn't know what I was doing, so I didn't know like how to pace myself or what. And I was running with a group of people. I remember at the beginning, and we were talking, and then the guy asked me, he's like, "Oh, how many runs or whatever have you done?" I'm like, "Oh, this is my first." He's like, "Really?" He's like, "Well, you better slow down and watch out." And I was
And
like,
you're
"All
like,
right,
man, you don't
whatever."
know anything about what I've been through. Like, this is not hard. Like I'm fine.
And but at the end of the race, probably about like maybe there's like 400 meters or something to the finish line. He's like passed out, and there's like paramedics working on him. Like
Oh man.
he like I guess he overdid it, overheated. I don't know what happened, but the guy who told me like I better watch out was like out, like didn't even finish. So I was like,
Yo.
I don't know. That was a lesson. Just keep to yourself when you're running. You don't need to get in people's business when you're out there. But
Well, that's life. I mean, like, just, know your lane, man. Like, I mean, if something ugly is happening and you sense that it's someone's being mistreated, yeah, step up. But like, if someone's like, hey, man, I'm here to make a bad decision, and like, you should probably just say like, cool, I've made a lot of those and I plan to make some more. Like, that's a Willie
yeah,
Carlisle reference. You like Willie Carlisle, the Tulsa's Last
hmm
Magician song, right?
hmm hmm yeah,
He says that
that's
in
a
one of
good
his
one. Yeah.
songs. Um, and That's life though, stand up
That
for what
is
you believe
life.
in, but also like, don't tell someone what they're capable of.
Yeah, there was a metaphor there for sure, but it was part of the first experience. And then after finishing, my dad was there, and I got to rest my legs in the cold river. And it was beautiful. And I couldn't walk, I remember, for like a week after that, but I was ready to adventure on to the next one. So,
So you do a bunch more ultras. Um, we don't have to go through the whole thing, but we, me and you get introduced to each other by Celia Santi, who's like a just super dear friend to both of us. I feel like we have so many close, dear friends at GU. We're both GU athletes, and they treat us really well. I mean, no, this is not a shameless plug. This is like we are a family at GU. Like straight up, man. It's like kind of always felt that way. I've been with them for I don't know 7 years, and Celia introduces us and she says like, hey man, like I remember her sending me your contact. I immediately responded. We were on the phone the next day, and you were um you were the goo athlete that, well, you weren't a goo athlete at the time, I guess, but goo gave you a spot to run Western States 100. And based on a plethora of ultra running results, plus like their belief in you, just of who you are from a character perspective, like all around person, they wanted you to run the race. Like, they could have gave that to anyone on the GU team, and you got the spot. And Celia asked me to coach you. Like, I mean, this is taking us back a couple years now, man. It's pretty cool. This is when we first like become friends, and I can remember like our first calls, and I'm like, wow, this guy's really interesting. Like Celia asked me to coach you, but then we became really good friends on this quest to you finishing the Western States 100. Um, What has that been like for you? Like just working together, man. I mean, I can, yeah. I mean, I think anyone listening could tell that it's been special for me, to get to know you and become your friend. But like, what was that like getting the spot to Western? Because it's hard to get in. It's a hard race to get into.
It's very hard to get in, and I was very honored and excited and humbled to be a part of it and to be asked. It was Jordan Daniels of Rising Hearts who reached out to me because Rising Hearts Indigenous Land Initiatives um, program was working with GU and land advocacy and land acknowledgments and so forth, and much more. And then I guess, through conversation with them, they asked, oh, I think, well, we know this person, Yatika. And I had a qualifying actually from Black Canyon, which helped. So me have that spot. But when she asked me if I wanted to do it, it was a no brainer. I was like, definitely, I'm definitely going to be running this. I'm definitely going to take this and train and do it well. And I'm honored to be a representative, and I'm going to do it well and do it right. So that's how I saw it. But
We're gonna link Jordan's organization, Rising Hearts, and all the fantastic work they do in the show notes as well. We would love to bring Jordan on here someday to chat about all her great work.
yeah, we're going to Minneapolis this coming weekend to go do a screening and showing of the film that we did throughout the whole process in the build up to Western States and during Western States as well. It's called No to Run. So we could probably link up the trailer on here as well to that. But the experience of it all was just magical, man. It was, meeting you. And I remember I showed you that photo of us meeting you in Chamonix,
Yeah,
and that came
yeah, it
up.
was me and you and Jason Schlarb.
Yeah, yeah.
I remember. I can so clearly remember meeting you now.
And
Then it
you were
was
there. I
like
think
I didn't.
you were
It
running
took a minute.
CCC.
I was trying my hand at OCC. Yeah,
Yeah,
OCC. And you were running the 125K TDS.
TDS. Yeah, yeah, running TDS that year. But we brought that up, so I feel like it kind of came full circle in meeting you, and then having to work together was almost like meant to be, you know. And I'm a big advocate and believer in things like that. So the universe
Yeah,
puts
me
you in
too, man.
places where you need to be. But
Yeah, I've always felt like the closer we got as friends, not just me coaching you, um, the the more I knew we were meant to become friends. I just was like, we have so many things we connect upon and believe in. Um, I think really highly of you, and I love you. It's it's special to have you on this show. But this is just the coolest opportunity we get. We never sit and look each other face to face for an hour and 15 minutes unless I'm in Tulsa, right? Like we don't do this unless I'm in Tulsa. And when does that happen? I don't know. Once so far. um, so we were definitely, I think, meant to collide at some point, and it's cool that we have. Um, you had a great run at Western States, man, and it was special to be a part of it. I can remember you in these bad patches at several junctures. Can remember you saying like, "I shouldn't have wore black," or "I needed socks earlier than this," or "new fresh socks." And I remember one particular moment, and it was in Forest Hill, and you were in this. No, it was in Michigan Bluff, and I remember we were waiting and waiting, and there were a few people we knew you were close to that had come in already, and you came down the descent into Michigan Bluff where the aid station was, and you passed through the aid station, you got a few things, and you came over to us, and you were in a bad spot. You remember that? Like it was your feet were really wet and tore up.
yeah, Yeah,
But I
I
remember
remember
just
that.
telling you, man, like, get on these fresh socks and remember what this race means to you. You signed up for this, you know?
Yeah, that race was something else, as you know. I mean, you know what goes on out there, and for I think at Robinson Flat, my crew wasn't able to make it there due to some things that came up, and so I wasn't able to change out
Right.
of my pack and change into something light, and I wasn't able to
Yeah.
change shoes or socks, so I had to keep everything on that I was wearing in the mountains. And as I was in, the next section was canyons, which is hot and unforgiving, and so
Yeah.
that's where the damage started to happen for me when the crew wasn't there and I wasn't able to get what I needed. And I was like, okay, well, I got to continue on. And I eventually got to some aid station in the middle in there, dusty corners or something, and asked a volunteer if I could have their socks, and they gave them to me. But at that point, the damage was already done. So, um,
But that's another like those things in the alternative community, man. You know, someone gives you their headlamp, which happened, at some point for me, and like someone gives you your socks, like they'll give you the shirt off my back, man. I'm not running the race. Like, what do I need these socks for? Sure, man, you're in a bad shape. Come in here, we're gonna clean you up too. Like we're gonna help you out. That's what I love about ultra running. People are they're just giving and loving.
yeah, it really is a giving community. It's really a beautiful community, and in all of it, in the collaboration with you, I've gotten to know the everyone there, and I've gotten to go to the facilities and the office, the headquarters in Berkeley, and get to know Celia and Magda and Yuri, and everyone is just so awesome and giving and caring, and I'm really stoked to be a part of it. Even knowing you and you helping me still, and even through that training block and through Western States, it means so much. And words can't put it in order, and it's just kind of a deeper appreciation for it all. And so I just want to say that much, that it's great to be on the podcast and get to know you and continue to know you more as a friend and athlete, but also with Goo as well, and who I am and who Rising Hearts is, and Goo's mission to help celebrate that, to help protect lands, and advocate for other communities, and do what they can to better the sport, to better the world. So I'm really grateful that I've been able to link up with a good community in that way that does that and helps me be the better person, be the better runner and artist as well that I can be. Because at a certain point, let's say when I was in Seattle, I would have never dreamed that art and running, or hell, I would have never thought I would have been running Western States 100 miler in
Oh
2016,
yeah, man.
So
Who
that
would
was
have? I mean,
no,
who would have, man? I
yeah.
remember, being like 10K's far enough, man. You know? I remember those
Mm.
days. Just thinking like, I'm not gonna run a marathon. That's so crazy. That's so insane. And to think
Yeah,
like we've
it's
just like
crazy.
normalized this insane thing. you know? Like it's just like I don't even want to run 50 milers, man. I like hundreds, It's just so
Yeah.
funny.
Yeah.
My
Wow.
favorite memory outside of you, finishing and just like all the love like you put into your community and Jordan and your partner, everybody, man, like all of us just being there for you, and feeling like we were on that mission to get you to the finish line along with the other athletes. Like I coached for the event and you were all kind of close. Like the three people I was coaching for the race that year, you all had like a very tight spread. Like it was like an hour and 45 minutes between the three of you, somewhere between 24:45 and like I paced Megan and Canfield and you at like 26:30. You and Cassie were really close to each other. I remember like coming down from White Bridge, which for those that don't know Western States, like you're on the final stretch before you get on the track. And I remember you chatting with me, and like everybody was giving us a little bit of space because they were like, dude, we did it. Like you're coming in at 26 and a half hours. I remember you saying, tell you what, man, these 100 milers, like they make you really appreciate how cool like 10Ks and 5Ks and like riding your bike is. I think I'm going to do a lot of that after this. I remember like, dude, your quads were so trashed. And I can just remember you saying how like you couldn't wait to just like not run and ride your bike for a while. you know, you were like just having like virtually like delusions, man. Just like you're going to be running in like a month, but like I remember how crushed you were, man. Like you gave it every ounce, man. It was really special and cool to see you just ring it out, man. You like took the towel and you're just like, that's it. That's all I had, man. You know?
Yeah, I really did ring it out. My quads were definitely wrecked after that. Um, yeah, there's a lot of things that happened in that race. A lot of beautiful things. A lot of things I wish that wouldn't have happened into the build up and during it, but that's part of it. And I accepted it and stepped up to the challenge to get it done. And then you break it down, it's not it's all for the community that I'm from, the community that I'm representing with GOO, with Rising Hearts, for all Indigenous people, for Native runners that are coming up, from our ancestors, from my family members who passed on. It was all in honor of that, and in hopes that things that we seek and we want in a better world, whether it's in just the running communities, in the races that we partake in, the lands that we run on, or the communities that we're from, I was the person who was running for that as an
Yeah, man.
advocate with Rising Hearts and GOO. So I always thought about that in it, and then I knew that
When it
I
was
was strong
hard
enough to
or
carry that
like
message. So
yeah, because it got hard and you were running for more than just some buckle you might store in a shoebox below your bed or whatever. You were running for something really special. Because like
yeah.
I don't know, man. Like some people just aren't seen. You like I just try to interact with people. I guess like it's just like some some people aren't seen in our society, whether that's because of their financial situation or their ethnicity or their skin color. Like how are we still there? It's just like it's frustrating, but you're a leader in your community. And I think we could be very angry about that, or we could focus on what you did for your community. And that's the beauty of it to me and what you did at States and getting your buckle. You helped your community be seen. Like you're a native man. Muskogee Cherokee, you crossed the finish line. Felt really good. You had a lot of people there that loved you and cared about you all day and like sacrificed, you know, 26 and hours, 25 minutes of their time,
Mm-hmm.
to just
Mm-hmm.
get you there, man. Mm,
Yeah.
yeah.
Yeah, those things, and you have to acknowledge the crew, and the efforts that they take out of their daily life and sacrifices that they do and partake in to help you, and that's not overlooked, and that's something I also think about as well, that I'm very appreciated in. But that's also another one of those beautiful aspects of the community that we keep talking about.
Okay, so you are going to Minneapolis, and where can people see the film about you and your adventure that you had at Western States? Are there some cities that will be showing the film this summer into the fall? Um, is there somewhere people can access it that they can find out more about your adventure on that day?
Yeah, if you go to, we'll link Rising Hearts website on here, and you can see the trailer on there. And I'm not for sure if you can watch the whole thing on there. We'll be screening it in Minneapolis this coming weekend, but it'll also be showing at Western States prior to race day. There'll be a screening of No to Run there. and other locations to be determined at this point still. But your best bet to catch it is if you're going to be up at Western States is to see it there.
And I'm gonna be there. Yatika, I hope are you gonna be there? I know you've been kind of warbling back and forth. Are you coming?
I'm still I'm still whirling around. So we'll see. I
Warbling,
was
man.
thinking
That's
about
that's
that
a that's a real
today.
country. It's a real country thing right there. Warbling, man. You know.
Yeah, I'm still whirling on that, man. Thinking about what's going on because at the same time, our ceremonies are happening here in June. So there's a lot of things going on, and I'm already missing some of it going to Minneapolis. So
Yeah,
I'm
and the
trying
ceremonies are a very important part of who you are. You know, it's a big part
to.
of where you got a lot of your heat training for last year, man, or
Yep,
for Western States when we prepared for it, right?
yep, it is. We'll see. I'm still thinking about it, still figuring it out. So hopefully, I
Hey,
see you there.
yeah, I hope to see you there. And if you see me and Yatika hanging out there, and you decide to come see the film, please, don't be a stranger. We're pretty down to earth guys. Like I like to talk to everybody. My partner, knows that, and yeah, it's a part of like the responsibility of being with me. I get really chatty with people of all different walks of life. So, hey, please come say hi if you decide to, or if you're at Western States and you see the film. I encourage you to see the film. So it's really special. Um, Yatika, what you we're preparing for UTMB. You're on your quest to get your finish around the mountain. I know you're really excited about it. Anything about UTMB you want to cover?
I'm just excited to get back to Chamonix and finally do UTMB. I've been wanting to do that race for the past, well, hell, probably after my 50K I did in 2016. And it's kind of been a mission to get there, to gather all these points and now running stones and got in. So I'm excited to get it done. It's kind of, I guess, a bucket list race of races that you aspire to do if you're invested in ultra running. So I feel pretty strong for it after Miwok, and then we have Speed Goat coming up too, which we have as a build up race for it,
Perfect build up
and
race, you know?
climbing. What's the altitude there at Speed Goat? Is it?
I'm not going to type on the cast, but Snowbird's pretty high up. We should probably know that.
Well, I'm
I
excited
mean,
to
not
do
that it
Speed
really
Goat.
matters because you're training in Tulsa, man, but,
Yeah, it doesn't matter. I'll hop into altitude for how many hours it takes, but we're gonna get it done and then do UTMB and get out there. And what I love about UTMB events, even doing TDS, is that you're running with trail runners from all over the world. And you're out there at night and you're out there at whatever hour and you're seeing the country or their flag on their back and you
yeah, man.
and then you see where you're at and you know that they have also put in all that time and sacrifice to get to where they are in training. And it's like so beautiful and so moving and so powerful. And you go through a transformation in that in those races. I think for me in TDS it was super hard. I really had to break through in who I was and figured out a lot in that. And I'm hoping the same will happen at UTMB, because these races aren't easy.
They're not easy. Even having done the short course, man. Ew, man. They're hard, man. That terrain is so hard. Just yeah, we could break it down and break it down, but man, I just can't run those uphills. Just hike, 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 man. And
Power
then
hike.
you're just out of control, man. Just like I'm just like out of control running downhill too, you know? It's very strange being from an extremely flat swamp-like place and going there and trying your hand at it. It's fun and interesting. But we're made to do hard stuff like you and me. Like I'm I'm like I don't know, man. I came out, you know, covered in train grease, man. Meaning like I'm just like I like hard stuff, man. Like I just really like blue collar hard things, whether it's music or running, or, pedicabbing and all of it, man.
Yeah.
I love all of it. Coaching, you're in the weeds, you're emotional support system for a lot of different people, and I live for it, like I just live for it, man. So, um, well, you have a lot of exciting things going on with your art. Is there anything in particular that you have coming up this summer that you'd like to tell people about?
On June 22nd, I have an exhibition. I'm a part of a big group exhibition at the OK Contemporary Museum in Oklahoma City called Souls the Wanderer. I have a huge painting in that it's 8 by 12 feet oil painting, and then a video component as well. That same week, I'm also having an opening with the collaboration with the OKC Ballet and a choreographer, Rena Butler. That's called Unboxed, and I helped contribute and collaborate with the sound for the dance component that the dancers will be dancing to, and I'm also designing and painting the outfits that they'll be wearing.
Wow, man.
Um,
Cool.
so that's happening pretty soon, and all these things that are happening with that have to be kind of finished in the next few days and figuring it out and running around. So that's currently what I'm involved in. There's some bigger projects as well that I'm working on here in Tulsa, part of the Tulsa Artist Fellowship residency program that implies itself to working and creating more Indigenous visibility here in Tulsa. So, really trying to create Tulsa's first Indigenous art space, cafe, working with the local tribes and their food sovereignty programs, and just really try to revitalize and create a space that we can nurture and grow and cultivate here in Tulsa, and a space that we can call our own. So this is a long-term project, but in this moment, in this year, in the next year, kind of figuring out what we are, LLC, nonprofit, doing pop-up events to cater to the community of what this project will look like, and then I got to get in the studio and make a lot of paintings as well. So for a new body of work,
Yeah, man.
and so it's always something, and it's always full for sure.
Hustlers be
But I'm
hustling, man.
happy that
You know,
to be busy with it all.
hustlers be hustling. All right, we're gonna do this again on the Ultra Wizard Ramble podcast. We're gonna link a lot of Yatika's projects here down in the show notes. I'm really grateful to have you in my life, man. Thanks for coming on the cast, and I can't wait till we get to hang out again in person. Maybe the next time we get on this cast together, we'll be talking about our like epic 500-mile gravel biking adventure or something. With
Definitely, yeah,
Yuri,
I know we
with
talked
Yuri,
about
maybe
that.
with Yuri, we'll see. I don't know, man.
Yeah, one way or the other, we're going to be riding some distance on gravel, that's for sure. And yeah, I got to get to Savannah as well. But yeah, I'm looking forward to what our next adventure is, or when the next time we see one another. And I'm really happy and stoked to be on this podcast, and happy that your voice is has a platform now with it. Because as we both discussed throughout this whole thing, there's so much more. I think everyone could have a podcast. Not that everyone could or should, but that we're so complex in who we are as humans and people. We have so many stories to
We
tell.
are.
Um, and in endurance sports and ultra running, everyone definitely has a unique perspective on what that means to them, and how they go about it. With us in this particular conversation, there's a lot of arts that are involved in it, whether that's music and culture and the human spirit of punk rock, I guess. What does that mean?
Gorilla
But
Biscuits,
that's a whole other
Fat
podcast for
Mike,
sure.
Milo. I don't know, man. Punk rock is my life. It's who I am. It made me
Yeah,
who I
punk rock's
am.
always a part of me as well. It's who I am too, for sure.
Yeah, it's funny these little characters, like these little guys. It's Milo and Fat Mike and the Gorilla Biscuits. Like I think about it every day. I think about the words they say, and they've made me into like who I am as a person. Um, because of their resistance to just what was acceptable, you know.
Exactly.
and what is an acceptable way to be. And I think with you, like, that's why I connect with you, man. And that's why I'm glad we started to form that connection, because we're not afraid to be who we are. Like, take it or leave it, dude. You know, I am who I am, and I know you are too. And that's why I'm so grateful to have you in my life, buddy. So,
Oh, thank you. Appreciate it, brother. Love you, man. And
love you too,
it's
man.
great to be on this podcast. And until the next time, for sure.
Until the next time. Well, hey, thanks so much, man. Take care of yourself. Well, I hope you enjoyed me and Yatika's conversation tonight as much as I did. He's an open book, you know. Yatika came on the cast tonight to discuss exactly who he is in this, unedited way, where he told us about his life experiences. We had a chance to hear about his art, his love for the outdoors, ultra running, his activism, and I. There are very few people I think more highly of than Yatika and the character that he has in all things that he does. So I hope you enjoyed the podcast. We're going to put a bunch of awesome things we talked about on tonight's podcast, like in the show notes at the bottom, where you can find out about Jordan and Rising Hearts, where you can find out about Yatika's artwork, the film that him and Jordan from Rising Hearts are putting out. If you're at Western States this year, you'll be able to see it before the event kicks off. And I encourage you to do so. So thanks so much for joining us tonight on the Ultra Wizard Ramble, whether you're enjoying this on YouTube or on podcasts, wherever you listen to them. And we'll see you next time.